Hi, everyone, and welcome to I'm a Fan. I'm your host, Kimbra Eberly, and today we have an artist who's been exhibiting professionally for over 10 years. She's also a writer of a series called Pure Blood. And she had a book in 2009, a book in 2010, a book in 2011, and four books in the series. So I want to welcome Janine Wright, aka Jay Montana Running Spirit. Yes, Jay.
Yes.
Did
How
I
are
get
you
that
today?
right?
You did.
Okay, good. I'm so happy for you to be here today because there's a lot to talk about.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So, I want to first talk about your art. So, you studied at fine arts at Lehman College?
Yeah, that I went on to Lehman College after I graduated from New York City Technical.
Yeah, how'd you like that?
Tech was interesting.
Yeah.
It was really a more of a rude awakening because since I didn't go to school here in New York City and I went to school in Massachusetts for high
Oh,
school, um, it didn't give me the same discipline that in Massachusetts that I would have had here. So when I entered college, it was more like a wow moment.
oh,
And
okay.
yeah, it was different,
Yeah.
you know.
So what made you pick art as your degree? Were you like have you always known that you were an artist from like young?
I was always drawing as a child because I was always in trouble.
Oh,
So
oh,
yeah,
okay.
I never understood why I was always in trouble, but I was always in trouble, so I always spent a lot of time in my room drawing. And it's funny because my mom always told me that my kindergarten teacher told her that's what I was going to grow up to be, an artist.
Oh.
And I keep thinking like, what was I doing in kindergarten that she would make such a prediction? So
Do you have any of your drawings from childhood?
everything that I had from junior high school, that where I went to school in the Bronx, into high school was completely wiped out by
Oh.
Hurricane Sandy.
Oh.
All
Oh.
30 years of work
Oh
just
wow.
gone.
That's heart-wrenching.
It was. It
Wow.
was. I went into shock
I'm
for
sorry.
for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that really sucks.
Yeah.
So, I want to talk about your art because you've done a few artist markets that I've been at,
Mm.
and just tell me like how you come up with your ideas and yeah, what's your favorite type of thing you're working on right now?
Um, I'm doing portraits currently right now, but I'm starting to shift back to how I used to, the work I used to do before because, I've gone through definitely a growth period with myself. I basically used to do a lot of cultural art where I mixed, my black heritage with my Native American heritage
Mm-hmm.
and just fused them together, in a lot of my artwork. And then as I started to travel, I would take their culture and fuse it together. Like my brain would just automatically be putting things together before I even got to the canvas or
Yeah.
to the paper. So
So
um,
you already visualized it in your head?
a lot of times when people ask me about being an artist, I tell them, I create and destroy art in my brain every minute of the day.
That's great.
And all it is that I need to be able to grab one and pull it out,
Mm-hmm.
you know, before it disappears. And a lot of people look at me like I'm crazy. I said, but that's what's
I
happening
can
in my
kind of
head.
relate to that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what's going on in my head all the time.
Yeah. That's
So,
wild.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
So you did a piece for me for the Lizzie Borden shop.
Yes.
It kind of reminded me a little Picasso-ish.
Picasso was the first artist I fell in love with.
I can tell.
Really?
Yeah, I can tell the influence. Yes.
And it's so weird because um I was fascinated at the fact that he it was so childlike, and I was like, hey, how is he doing that? You know. And then I moved on to Michelangelo. and the Renaissance period. And I actually did a reproduction of God Created Man.
Oh, wow.
And
Do you
I
still have
left it, I gave it to a friend when I lived in Arizona. I can't even find a photo of it.
Oh,
You know, it was one of those things like I have to prove to myself that I can paint
yeah.
like that. And then I did it. And I photographed it I think one time. It's literally in a photo of a friend of mine
Yeah.
when she was visiting me from Kentucky, and it's in the background.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I left it with a
You have
girlfriend
to,
of
like,
mine.
do one of these and enlarge it or something. Wow.
to see it. And then after Hurricane Sandy, I started doing work according to sound.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so my brain and my hand were going to, it was creating art, you know, through sound. The whole idea of the vibration. Yeah.
That's
And
interesting.
I'm kind of still doing it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can talk about your little secret talent that you have that not many people know about. Speaking of sound, which is your singing.
Rose entwines, beware of me. Long and weary, my road has been. I was lost in the city, alone in the hills, no sorrow or pity for leaving. I feel, yeah, I am not your rolling wheel. I am the highway. I am not your carpet ride. I am the night.
You know, I didn't realize until a few years ago, like we had a band along with Leanne,
Yeah.
the Stevie Chicks for a while, and I didn't realize like how good of a singer you are. And then
Thank you.
And then you performed at a play that we did. You sang. Oh, it was in The Bad Singer. I wrote.
Dragonfly in the sun, you know what I mean, you know. Butterflies in the fun, you know what I mean, yeah. Sleeping peace when day is done, that's what I mean. And this whole world is a new world and a whole world for me. And I'm feeling good.
I wrote,
Yes,
short.
I loved that.
Yeah,
play.
so you performed
It was
in
so
that
great.
one.
It
You
was
weren't the
so
bad
great.
singer though.
But you know what's so
Like,
I think the thing that was interesting is the writer,
yeah.
the guy with the glasses, because
Yeah.
there was somebody else that was supposed to be in that part.
Right.
And I remember when you said, "Well, Montana's gonna sing," and he was very hesitant. I
Yeah.
remember that because it was just like he's looking at me like I don't even know who she is.
Yeah.
Are you sure she can sing?
Yeah, yeah.
You know. And then when I opened my mouth, he was like, "Oh, yeah, she
Yeah.
can do that."
Yeah.
You know.
But that was a really good song for you though too.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
It fit you.
But I come from a musical background.
Oh, I didn't know that.
My mom was a dancer.
Oh.
My grandmother was a concert pianist.
Oh.
You know, my uncle played the saxophone, and you know, I just followed my sister because my sister, you know, took band. When in the same school, I would go back. I would then grow and go to the same school, so I
Yeah.
learned how to play the clarinet. And then so it's
that's a hard instrument.
It is a hard
Yeah.
instrument. I was in band for like 2 years, and then it was just too much. My lungs couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
So I liked music. So my mom was like, "Why don't you go to the chorus?" And
So you joined the chorus?
yeah,
What were you in the chorus?
I was, and I can definitely say was because my voice, from smoking, it just isn't there anymore. But I think I was considered a first soprano. I wasn't the higher one.
Yeah.
I was the one that could sing soprano.
The middle one.
Right, and
Yeah.
go to a certain level of alto.
Mm-hmm.
So I had an amazing voice back then
Yeah.
as a child, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I loved it so much.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I always was writing stuff. I loved writing poetry.
Which brings us to your
Yeah.
other talent, which is writing.
Writing.
And you have 4 books out on Amazon right now. It's a series.
With the Pure
Book
Blood
1
series.
through 4 with the Pure Blood series.
Yeah.
And you're actually doing little video trailers of the
Yes.
books too,
it was
which is a lot of fun.
So fun.
Yeah.
So fun. And I realized it was really hard. Because I have a granddaughter who does it all the time, and she would say to me, "Nana, you don't understand how hard it is."
Yeah.
Until I started putting those trailers, I was just like, "She's right. This it's it's not like you just throw these things together."
Yeah.
And I would be up like sometimes until 12 in the morning, because I was like, "No, I got to fix that and change this and move this around." But it was also exciting, because
Yeah.
it's the next step. From taking it from, a words in a book to now, making it something that's not quite live action yet, but the step before that.
Like a
So,
visual kind of,
yeah,
of
giving
storytelling.
giving people a visual of what it is of the story that I'm trying to convey.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the series. I know it's a vampire. Is it a vampire in the galaxy? New? Well, tell us about it.
The main character through the whole series is a power named Liliana.
Liliana, right?
And because coming from a Catholic background, I have always had this crazy interest in angels, and it's almost like the character's been with me for a long time, and I just didn't understand what it was. And back in the 90s, I did a pastel piece called The Guardian,
Mm-hmm.
which just shows eyes and an eagle, and the eyes are coming out of the cloud. And I titled it The Guarding, The Guardian, Keeper of the Watch. And when I decided to decided to write this book, it just started, on a whim, and it was
That's
just,
how it all begins.
yeah, it just started on this crazy whim, like, hey, write, enter this writing contest and use this word, and write, a paragraph around it. And I did, and of course I didn't get it. But then I sat there looking at it, and I was just like, I got something to say here,
Yeah.
And it reminded me of a writing class when I used to take at Lehman, where the professor would be like, listen, I'm going to give you this word, and I just want you to write a paragraph. That's it, And I was like, yeah, I can do that. So the story literally just started to pour out, and the idea of this higher being, coming here, and even though she's one of the old ones, she still at the same time is a child because she doesn't really understand, anything about our history as humans.
Well, earthly things,
Right.
basically.
So she comes here and she starts to come into contact with the purebloods, the vampires, the werewolves, the sorceress, but it's because of her being here that all of these immortals are surfacing and showing themselves.
So it's like a fantasy kind of story
It is.
of every monster you can think of that you may encounter.
Yes, pretty much,
Yeah.
all the demons. But what's behind who and what she is love.
Okay.
She's pure love.
Which probably saves her from a lot of things, right?
Right.
It puts up a barrier, maybe.
It does, but at the same time, she's not experiencing that human experience.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually she makes a decision, and
Because she's immortal too.
she's immortal.
Right.
Well, well, they're all immortal until they decide to descend
Yeah.
here. It's almost like that movie City of Angels.
Yeah.
Where once they become mortal, they get to, feel pain,
Right.
feel sorrow,
They feel everything.
feel happiness. Yeah.
Mm.
So it's in that context.
How do you come up with this idea, what initially made you want to write about an immortal person descending from the universe coming into our world? What made you pick that?
I guess I you go through your life and your life story, and you start to wonder, is there something greater out there?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, we always wonder that, don't we?
yeah, we do. And one of the writers, or someone that had a really big influence on me was Joseph Campbell,
Mm-hmm.
and his Power of Myth, which I found fascinating.
Yeah.
And the way he was trying to explain the stories of our real human experience,
Yeah.
and there's, when you take Star Wars, actually, with any type of fantasy movie, it's always about good versus evil.
Yeah.
And of course, once you go through the course of the stories, good always prevails over evil. You know what I'm saying? But
Most of the time.
most of the time, but in my series, that's where the problem begins, because I live in a world where good doesn't always prevail over evil.
Right.
And that's what's going on as you go through the course of the books, that you start to experience the life and the human of what we deal with. Especially we live in a time where everybody is saying it's the end times, judgment is coming, Jesus is coming to save us. We know
Yeah.
it is, because look at what's going on. But these things have gone on before,
Right.
and no, Jesus didn't come down and save anybody.
Yeah, I think it's what people believe, people believe that Columbus discovered America, but he did. In fact, there were many people from Europe that came over to this country before him.
The Vikings.
The Vikings
were seafarers.
Yeah, of course.
you know.
The Knights of Templar,
Yes.
people from France, Spain, all
The
of them.
Russians.
Russian,
They,
yeah,
they
everyone.
everybody.
Yeah, so then when they teach that, I'm like, no, that's
Yeah,
not true.
That's not true.
Yeah.
It's not. In fact, you never even hear in history that the Vikings came here.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. But they were here way before. I find it interesting, and I know you're kind of a history buff. No, you are, because when we had the last writer's block, which I loved. I mean, I just love the writer's block because we get to share a lot of
I enjoyed
stuff.
it also.
You shared a story with us last time, one that you're working on right now. I don't know how much I want to say about it, but it was amazing because
Thank you.
it's all history, and but it's a story. Go ahead, tell yeah.
Where I basically weave parts of history into the
Into the story.
storyline.
Yes, yes, it's great the way you did it.
I'm a huge fan of, books and especially movies where time travel or crossing time
Yeah.
comes in. And, remember the movie with Jane Seymour and
Was it a movie or a show?
no, it was a movie,
Oh,
and it was with Christopher Reeves. It was great. It was called Somewhere in Time,
okay.
and I think he kept crossing back and forth, and he would fall in love.
I
fell
vaguely
in love.
remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
they
was. It
they
was.
were falling in love and reincarnated, right? Over and over. Or
Yeah,
something?
but he was pass. I think it was his character that was passing, back in time.
Okay.
And I remember, and I saw that when I was a child, and I thought that was so fascinating. But I love stories where there's time travel,
Yeah.
involved. It's usually one person. So basically, this story does the same thing, but
What's the name of your new story? You didn't name it yet.
yeah, I'm not sure I'm gonna stick with the title
Okay.
Across Time.
Because it had me sucked in from the get go, and like I mean, you just sat there, you read chapter one, you were on chapter two, and I'll tell you, I was mesmerized, and then, well, I don't want to give away anything but I know you're working on it, and like how you come up with these ideas are just it. It's one thing to write about history, but to interweave it into
Right,
like
into a story.
story that's
Right,
coming out of your head that you're telling is really difficult.
right.
It is, and you're accomplishing something that's really hard to do.
Well, we'll,
So
we'll see.
kudos.
We'll see how well we hold on to that as I keep writing the book. But I actually do have another book that's on Amazon, and it's called Dakota Rising. It's a
Oh,
love story.
okay.
You know, I never really talk about it. I don't know why. I think I don't like the cover or something. Yeah, it's fun. It's definitely because I'm an incurable romantic. Even if I'm not in a relationship, I just have this thing about love. I think it's beautiful, and it is the one constant in the universe.
Yeah.
Is love, and you know, even in Pure Blood, there's like a conversation because, I always like the stories of King Arthur, and I was always fascinated by Morgan Le Fay. I just thought she was amazing. I'm like, I want to be her, And even though they have so many different ways that they describe her, she was good, she was bad. The thing is that she was who she was, and I always found her character misunderstood. So there is like a conversation with, in the book with Liliana and the ancient, Morgan Le Fay. Because I always feel that, all this mythology, it
Yeah.
came from somewhere.
Yeah, of
You know,
course.
it wasn't just folklore. These people built temples, to these gods. So
They're iconic.
exactly.
And they're totems, and everyone believes in it's
Exactly.
funny that everyone in the world can believe in the same God.
Yeah.
Like it's familiar to them at
It's
least.
familiar
Yeah.
to them, So
Like how does that happen?
I don't know.
In different languages too. It's like
it 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 boggles the
it
mind,
does.
but as you
As Carl Jung would say, that's a collective unconscious.
yes, he
Which-
would.
We transfer things.
He would. Well, I mean, the planet has a memory. The universe has a memory.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that we would these memories would transcend to the next incognation of, is that the right word? Is it?
Incognation?
Is it?
Possibly. We'll look it up later.
Okay, of humankind,
Yeah.
because we've been here so many times, It's just that we have no memory of what was going on before. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, that's another thing. If you're an author or writer, make sure you look up your words and you know what
You
you're
have,
yeah.
well, even when you're like with the book where I weave history in it, you, I have to go in and learn
It's
about.
one thing I like about the Kindle when you're reading it. Like if you come across a word you don't know, you can just hit the word with your finger and it'll give you the dictionary
Yeah,
definition on the fly.
which is
Instead of,
great.
remember old school, you always have to go to the dictionary and look it
Yeah,
up. So
which is was a good thing though, and
it
you have a
is.
thesaurus, attached to it. You could
Yeah,
use a different word.
exactly. Yeah.
But it's funny because even with my art, when I used to do mostly cultural, I would have people, that would see my work and they would go, "Do you know what that really means?" And I
Oh,
would look at them and say, "Of course I do." Because it was almost like a challenge. They
yeah.
wanted to make sure if I was using, especially a Native American symbol, in my artwork, it was like, so do you know what that symbol means?
How dare they?
And then I would say it and they were like, do you know, where the story of that symbol comes from? And I'm just looking at them, okay, so let me give you the answer, and then it was just like, oh, you did your
I
research.
would have said no. I have no clue. Why don't you tell me?
Well,
Like, I mean,
I understood it, and it was fine with me. It was just, really important. Sometimes people just want to make sure that you know what you're doing, when you put a symbol, use a
I
symbol or
know, but in the
something.
art world these days, does it really matter? Because it's like it just seems like it's a pot of stew these days where anybody, it's a free for all kind of thing.
It can, but think about using the symbol of the swastika. This is a perfect
Yeah.
thing.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
every culture before the Nazis used it, it was not a symbol
Right.
of,
It
evil.
wasn't.
You know, the Chinese used it,
Didn't the Vikings use that too in
the
some form?
Vikings used
Yeah.
it, Southwestern Native Americans
Yeah.
used it, and it wasn't for what they that's it wasn't for what they were using it for, what it
Well, people
represented.
associate it to
Right,
German Nazi.
right.
Right.
But unfortunately, that's all they associate it with.
Right.
It's a symbol that's been around for centuries,
Yeah.
basically. You know,
Before
so
Christ.
before Christ,
Yeah.
definitely.
So
So I love the supernatural as long as it's done well. You know what I'm saying? Like I've read a few urban fantasy tales, and this is where it gets really weird because there's a formula. There's a formula that they use when they're writing urban fantasy, and of course, there's the protagonist, there's the antagonist. Somehow they end up together, they fall in love, then they fall out of love, you know. And whenever I read books like that, I'm like, well, I don't want my series to do that. I don't want my protagonist and my antagonist to fall in love and then there's that disagreement like, no, we can't. I don't want that. I want to break the formula.
well, yeah, and I think you should be allowed to write whatever the heck you want to write. Like people get in. I can only compare it to music, with not following the verse, chorus,
Right.
bridge, verse, chorus.
Right.
People get annoyed if you switch that out, like,
Right.
because it's called the Stroop effect. Believe it or not,
Okay.
The Stroop effect is like if you're driving down the street and you see the red, green, and yellow light, right?
Right.
And the light turns red without even thinking. You automatically put your foot on the
That's
brake.
true.
Without even thinking. So there's things like that, and this is one of them.
Right.
People expect it's embedded in you
Yes.
that you react automatically. It's an
Right.
automatic response.
Right.
So for someone to change something up, it does. It flips people out, and it's like don't do that.
I'm
But-
about to flip them out then.
But I love stuff like that that challenges
the norm.
The norm, right? Even movies that challenge the norm.
Yes.
You know, those are
Yes.
some of the best films out there.
They are.
So I say go for it and don't just do what you know, do what you're passionate about, and don't give a shit about what other people think because everybody's going to have their own opinion anyway.
I'm
about-
going to be my own Daenerys,
Yes.
you know, and
You-
break the wheel,
Yes.
as she said.
As you should.
Yes, I think so. I think it's time for, you know, especially not fantasy, because fantasy you can take wherever you want, but I think it's time that, you know, we look at our world and see that it's not happening the way we keep telling ourselves it's happening.
No.
Like,
And it never will.
it never will.
No.
You know, at least I may not live long enough to see that whole big change. You know, it's like it has to get broken in order to fix it. You know, and that's where my series is heading. It's
Yeah.
going to get broken in order to fix it.
Yeah.
And that's the curious part on how it's going to end.
Sounds good to me.
It
I'll-
sounds good to me in my head.
I can't wait until
I can't wait either.
I can't wait till your next book's done because I really love it how it's coming out. But Jay, I just want to thank you so much for coming and
Thank
sharing
you for
some things with us. I know you and I could talk for hours, and we do.
Yes.
You know, the writer's block's coming up. I'll just do a little plug. Actually, I shouldn't do a plug because I don't know when this is
Yeah.
going to come out.
Yes.
But it's coming up, and we're going to have some authors, you know, join us and talk about writing and what it means. But I truly enjoy you being in that group, and I'm a huge fan of yours, and always been since when I first met you. I don't know how many years we've known each other, but quite a few.
It actually has been when you sit back and think about it.
Yeah, maybe at least 5.
Yeah. No, I think it's a couple of more years than that.
Than that, really?
Yeah.
Then I'm really losing track of time.
From when I met Kenny, you
so
know.
when was that?
That was probably 2014, 2015.
Oh wow. Okay.
You know,
So-
when this all was built
yeah.
and created.
So maybe like 8 years.
Yeah.
Wow, time flies.
It has, and the pandemic, you know, took a big chunk of it.
Yeah, like 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were all cave people. You know,
I don't
caves.
mind being a cave person. At the way things
don't
are
know, I
going,
think
I would do it now.
I think it's damaged a lot of things, though, as far as you know, rebuilding relationships and coming out and, you know, hanging out with people again. Like a lot of people reevaluated their lives. And
imagine what kind of stories that would come out from that.
yeah, well, I'm sure a lot have. They're just not written yet,
Yeah.
but they're there. So, but anyway, thank you, Jay.
Thank
for
you so
sharing.
much
Thank
for
you.
inviting me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And for all you out there, we will see you until next time. Signing off.